Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We are live. It is Marc here from WhiskyBrother. It is a Friday afternoon, as we've become accustomed to, and this is the Whiskey Makes Me Happy Hour. This is episode 6. I think it's quite almost a scary idea that we've already done 6 weeks of these shows. It's great, and we've loved doing them. It's good to be back. But it is, when we started this 6 weeks ago, we started thinking of this 7 weeks ago. It was very much around, during SA lockdown, connecting and kind of still engaging and talking whiskey. I don't think then we thought it would go on this long, and we definitely hoped it wouldn't go on this long, but here we are. This episode is slightly different than previous ones. So we've done 5 episodes, and for each of those episodes, we've been very fortunate to have some wonderful special guests. We're very thankful for them giving up their time and being so generous. But being so generous with their knowledge. I should probably finish that sentence. But this week we do not have a special guest per se. I think, I often, when I'm talking to whoever it may be, I see all the comments and I see all the questions and all the chatter going on. And this episode, I very much just wanted it to be around interacting a little more, engaging with everyone watching at home, and a little bit more kind of casual and a little bit more whiskey chat. So I see there's still interest for that sort of thing. So great. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to have a sip of water quick. Excuse me. and I hope it's interesting. And this kind of format of the show, I think, very much relies on you actually asking and chatting. So please, if you have any questions, post them in the questions section. I've gone through the previous episodes and I've pulled out any questions that I didn't get to in those shows, so that we can address those historically. Excuse me, I'm gonna put myself on mute, so I'm gonna cough quick. It's the one trouble of doing this and it's completely live, so I can't just kind of edit it out. And it's not something you kind of think of when you embark on these. If I have to sneeze, if I have to cough, if I'm speaking to someone and I have something in my eye, I have to pretend everything's normal. For this episode, I'm going to do none of that. I'm going to cough and splutter away. It is just us after all, and again, like I said, it's a little bit more casual. So I think this episode will be a little slower, a little less kind of heavy in terms of content, but hopefully just a little more engaging, a little bit more fun. And with that in mind, I very much want to start out by just kind of saying hi to a few people who've tuned in. We've got Peter Vanas. Thank you, Peter. We'll be seeing you later. We've got Jacques. We've got Vernon, Mitch. And these individuals posting comments. So post a comment and say hi. I see Duncan saying hi, Ryan saying something hi, and thank you for watching. Whiskey is all about people. It's been absolutely fantastic, as I say, to have some special guests on join us, and we'll have more of that going forward. But for this episode, we'll just make it more about, kind of the whiskey drinkers, not the whiskey makers. We're just as important as they are. So let me know what you're drinking, what's in your glass. I myself am drinking something rather special and close to my heart and WhiskyBrother's heart. This is our first ever independent bottling. This was done back in 2014 already. It's hard to think of 6 years ago. And this was WhiskyBrother's first single cask exclusive release. It is a Glenlivet, but it is not from the Glenlivet distillery, produced by Glenlivet, but bottled by independent bottlers Signatory. I'm a big fan of Signatory, and at the time, back in 2014, Signatory had not really been available in South Africa before. Fortunately, got hold of the individuals there, Des, and we kind of got the okay to do a single cask. We had a little help locally from an importer, Paul, who's no longer actually living in South Africa. But yeah, so this one actually I selected from the warehouses in Signatory. So Signatory is in very much kind of mainland Scotland. It's just north of Glasgow and Edinburgh by about an hour drive. Small town called Pitlochry. And spent the afternoon there picking whiskey from casks, which was a phenomenal experience. And at the time, the first experience I had of the sort. And a few months later, we had this bottle for us. So absolutely beautiful color. It is an Oloroso sherry butt. Hard to find these days. There were only 430 bottles, and this was 6 years ago. So you can imagine, this would have sold out in the first, probably took us about a year to sell out, maybe slightly less. Then once they're all gone, that was it. So occasionally we might find another one. We try and make sure that the bar always has stock from our archive. But that's what I'm drinking today. A real kind of sherry bomb and everything you'd expect from a good Oloroso sherry cask. Let me know what you're drinking. I see, so Vernon, I just happen to see first you have Templeton Rye barrel strength, excellent whiskey. He says he got that from WhiskyBrother before the lockdown. Thank you. We were the only guys that had it, and thanks for the support. Reese, how you doing? Hitting the WB Woodford Reserve. WB Woodford Reserve up here. So I laid out a few of the WhiskyBrother bottlings, as you may be able to tell above me. It's quite cool to think that we've done now 26, and I hope my count is right. My count should be right. It'd be quite embarrassing. We've done 26 releases. Some of them as big. I think the biggest is actually the New Benriach at 600, and the smallest is probably I think the North British or the Girvan, one of the Duncan Taylors. One of these. There was 5. One of them was very few. It was a few dozen bottles only. So quite a large assortment. And talk to Gary and Neil about that, and just kind of a little bit of interactive discussion. But if you have questions about those, then please ask them, and we'll make sure we address them. I saw Michelle say, wish she picked the bottle up back in the day. Michelle, you're not alone. And hindsight's 2020. I think thankfully, we keep having these releases, and even if you couldn't, maybe if you're missing some from the collection, that's fine. I think I'm missing some as well. If you see above me, there aren't 26 there. I'm missing a few. I'm hoping they're somewhere lying around, but they come and go, and that's what makes them special. But if you miss them, that's okay. There'll be more. We've got Duncan tuning in. We've got Lee. We've got Andy. I hope that's Andy once again. Andy, how you doing? Nice to have you join us. Thank you. We're very honored. Nigel, drinking Macallan 12. They are no mute, clearing my throat. Okay, so a few questions. We have a question from Nigel, actually, saying, any news on level 3 lockdown timing? Nigel, your guess is as good as ours. Well, as an industry body, I suppose, or member of the alcohol industry, we haven't received any other additional information yet. Unfortunately, we watch the news the same as everyone, and that's generally where we get our information from. Just so that I think everyone knows this, but at level 3, WhiskyBrother can start some restricted retail, which we're desperately needing and wanting and ready for. We're eager to get back to work and get whiskey out there. From what we've seen, level 3 is, in terms of retail, we can do retail between Monday and Wednesday from, I think it's like 9 in the morning till 12 or 1. So very restricted. What we're expecting to do then is to be able to do deliveries as well. So if whiskey is allowed to be sold during those hours, we expect that we can then deliver whiskey during those hours as well. And then we'll start getting orders out, and we'll be able to take more orders online and get those out. So I don't know when level 3 will be. It can't come soon enough. I say that as a kind of, a general individual sitting at home, as well as a, kind of an individual in the drinks industry. Watch the space. As soon as we know anything, we'll share that. As soon as we know for sure when we can actually operate, we'll put that in our newsletters as well. We have a question from, I think it's Gendry. A lot of the whiskey in the store is sold out. Are you getting a lot of stock in once the lockdown ends? Thank you for the question. Answer is yes. I mean, at the moment, we can't order whiskey and it can't be delivered. So the website is up and it's running. You can order it. There are a few items that are out of stock because they've been sold, and we haven't been able to get more whiskey in. What we don't want to do is just turn it on and allow you to buy, and then maybe we can't get it from the supplier. So as soon as lockdown ends, we will then replenish our stocks. We'll have to do quite a sizable stock take when we're back online. Make sure all the quantities are right. We take great pride in that, and we'll take it from there. But yes, we do plan on. We'll have to fill our shelves as soon as we can after lockdown ends. Thank you for the question. Question from Vernon. What is the latest with the Only Whiskey show? Vernon, thanks for asking. So as it stands now, and we did say this last week, there's no movement between now and last week, but the current official stance is that the show will not go ahead on the planned dates. We absolutely still intend to have the show, just not at the end of July for Joburg and early August for Cape Town. We still hope and plan to do both Joburg and Cape Town shows. Cape Town will be our first year, and we're very excited to do that. But we plan on having kind of the same shows we always do, and the same show that we plan to have, just not on the planned dates. So the intention is we can hopefully push it out. Well, we have to push it out, and hopefully that will hopefully September, October. Right now, it is hard to say. We don't know what the government will allow in terms of gatherings, large crowds. So yeah, just watch the space. When we know and we've made a decision, we'll absolutely communicate that. We love the show. It's very well received. It's such a great occasion. We'll do whatever we can to still go ahead with the show as planned. It will just hopefully be pushed back by a little while. Any ideas where the Smokehead comes from? So this is from Jacques. Jacques is asking about Smokehead whiskey. Smokehead is an Islay single malt. It is quite a peated whiskey. It is produced by In McLeod Distillers, which are also the individuals that own Tamdhu, and there's another one, Tamdhu Glengoyne. It is an undisclosed Islay whiskey. So we know it's an Islay whiskey from the west coast of Scotland, from Islay. We know it's peated. We know it's a single malt. There are only 9 active producers on Islay. 2 of those one of them is very new, Ardnahoe, that only opened last year. Prior to that, you have Kilhoman from 2005. So you could quite easily, Smokehead predates those, so you could almost easily remove those 2. You can remove those 2 distilleries from the pool. That leaves potentially 7 other distilleries. By process of elimination, it's there is no official word. My kind of my guess would be it's either I think at times potentially younger Lagavulin, which is possible. I think nowadays that's quite unlikely because it's in the last kind of 5 years Lagavulin has gone from strength to strength, and all the whiskey they produce would, I think, be intended for single malts under their own brand. So the other obvious candidate is Kalila. Kalila is the biggest distillery on Islay, produces a capacity of 6 million liters, does both peated and unpeated, but in terms of single malt, it doesn't actually, it's available, but it doesn't sell all that volume just as a single malt. So Kalila definitely goes to the blends. Most common of all and most well-known would be into the Johnny Walker blends, the ones that are slightly more peated, like the Johnny Black and or Double Black. But there's a good chance that Smokehead is Kalila. It's all kind of speculation. It does make sense. The one thing is that we never know if it's always consistent. So you might find Smokehead maybe changes distilleries. They don't have to change the label because they don't say which distillery they are. So but generally the sentiment is there's the highest probability is that it's Kalila. Next question: have you petitioned the government to allow alcohol delivery at least during level 4, if level 4 lasts for the month of May? That's Tashriq. Tashriq, we haven't petitioned the government, to be honest. I mean, there was kind of a bit of an industry body, the alcohol industry to some degree, kind of ganged up and threatened to sue the government. I think under these circumstances, unfortunately, we're a small cog in a very big machine. There's nothing that we could do as a small entity that could yield any greater results than your Pernod Ricards or your Diageos or your Distels of the world. So I trust and I know that there's lots of conversation taking place behind public view that has kind of the interests of the alcohol industry and the workers in place. I'm not going to kind of comment on whether I think it's right or wrong, what the lockdown looks like. We are where we are. We'll be quite pragmatic and diplomatic for the sake of this live stream. Obviously, we are hurting as a business, and we will go. We'll open our doors as soon as we can legally, and as will all other alcohol retailers. So unfortunately, no, we will just sitting tight. We are kind of privy to some communication that there is stuff happening behind the scenes, but WhiskyBrother as a single entity, maybe it's naive, but I don't think we can do anything. For years, the biggest thing I would like to do is change the requirements of whiskey bottling in South Africa, dropping it to 70 cl, which is 700 mils, as opposed to the 750 mils. We've been talking about that for years as a kind of all the whiskey guys locally, and that's to no avail. Unfortunately, I don't think we've got much clout in terms of getting the government to change level 4. Next question we have is the whiskey ordered and paid actually in stock? Absolutely, that's from Nigel. And I'm not going to go into too much detail, but everything that's online and has numbers on it, so quantities that you can order, we have in stock. We pride ourselves on that. Keep in mind, it's important to know that we started first and foremost as a physical whiskey shop. in Hyde Park, so the whiskey that we have in shop is what is become available online. We've obviously kind of, thankfully, the online channel has been really, healthy and growing nicely for us. It's helping us to reach, a bigger set of South African whiskey drinkers. So now we do have warehousing with more stock, but we do almost regular. I say regular. We do regular stock takes almost daily, and everything that is online is available. So if you're able to buy a product online, that absolutely means that we have stock of it in our shop or in our warehouse. We don't ever sell something that we don't have. It's not how we believe business should be done. Okay, we have Derek, and then I'm going to bring on Neil and Gary just for a little bit more banter, and not just myself. But we have Derek asking, Marc, purely out of interest, how many deliveries were successfully completed prior to the lockdown? Noticed the entire team climbed in, got mine in time. Many thanks for that. Derek, thank you very much for your question. As far as we know, every delivery was done. So I'm going to kind of a bit of detail. Every delivery for Yearbook and for Yearbook and Pretoria was absolutely done. We had the whole team, and that included myself, Neil, Gary, Val. At the time, the bar was running limited capacity already. Everyone jumped in. We had cars, heading to the shop, getting orders, and heading out and coming back and doing that again. So for Yearbook and Pretoria, we absolutely got everything delivered. Courier orders to a little bit further outside of kind of immediate vicinity. Cape Town, all delivered. I think there was one question mark around a particular East London order that I think didn't get delivered in time. Excuse me, which is very unfortunate. We booked it in as soon as we could, but otherwise, for 99.9% of the orders were absolutely delivered in time. Thanks for asking. I'm going to have a sip of whiskey, and I'm going to bring on Gary and Neil. All right, so that's Gary invited online, and then Neil, inviting Neil online now as well. Just for break the monotony of my ugly mug, and just chat to the guys a little bit more about WhiskyBrother releases, what they're drinking, and how they're doing. First of all, this is Neil. Neil, how you doing?
How's it, guys? Hey, dude, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. You all good?
Yeah. Good.
Yep. Are you drinking some Anarch Day?
I actually am drinking the same as you, weirdly. The little Glenlivet. It feels right.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Well, you need to hurry up there, man. Come on. What's going on?
My plan is not to drink this during the show. The whole thing, that is.
Might make for a more humorous situation.
But we'll experiment with that another time. If we see our ratings, in kind of true Trump terms, if our ratings start dropping, we'll just use it as a piss-up.
Fair enough. Some tech issues again.
Yeah, well, I actually chatted with Gary previously and it worked all right. So let's just see. Maybe he's pouring a dram. Let's see if there's any questions and you can answer them on my behalf.
Cool.
So this is Juan asking that I mentioned wanting to change the bottle sizes to 700 mils. Do you believe the big South African producers are resisting this to protect their market share? Neil, you want to?
No. I think it's just so low down on the government's list of priorities that I honestly don't care. The big producers locally, a lot of them have interests overseas, and it would actually lower their costs. For Distell example, I'm sure Andy could probably chip in here. The bottling Bourbon and Deanston and various other things in Scotland, I'm pretty sure it would make a lot of sense for them just to do the entire bottling run instead of more and save them the hassle. Reality is, most of the big companies are bottling at 750 ml anyway for the US. That's the only reason we get a variety of whiskey in South Africa. I can promise you, if we were the only market in the world that wanted 750 ml, a range of bottlings would be a lot less. Thankfully, the US also has that 750 ml legal requirement, and we hop on that bandwagon and get some releases based on that.
Yeah. The irony is that, from South Africa, used to be a top 10 consumer in terms of value for Scotch whiskey. That's obviously declined over the last few years. Understandably, the economy's taken a bit of a knock. For volume, we're still doing quite well. I think we come in at number 9 for last year. There's a very large amount of daily blends being consumed. In the Jameson, Johnny, Jack, all those whiskeys. I mean, we'd probably still be able to get those in 750, but everything else would just disappear if it wasn't for the US market. Okay, Gary's I think having some technical trouble. I'm going to invite. Excuse me. All right, Neil, you can fill another question from us.
Sure.
Okay, that's it says, hi Mark, just a quickie. Is that a 3 Ships PX finish on the top shelf, third from the right, and if so, is it for sale? Neil, I don't know if you can see, but no, that's the WhiskyBrother Moscatel cask that we did. It's not for sale either. It's also sold out. So sorry, Ricardo, can't help you on either of those.
We get the PX in every now and again. Somebody's keen to sell their bottle, but I mean, the prices are exorbitant. I think the last bottle we sold was over 3,000 rand. So probably best to just stock up on the new releases when they come out. You get much better value for money that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because when that PX came out, it was really well priced. I mean, it sold out in like 2 days.
It was 800 rand a bottle. Well, no.
Yeah, and it was only 800 bottles, right?
800 and
yeah, you're checking. My memory's a bit poor at the moment.
Yeah, it's 800 on the nose. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, so WhiskyBrother at the time got half the allocation, right, and the other half was sold online through the distillery, and we sold out in 2 days. Technically,
NGF got 200, we got 200, and we got 200 each.
The retailer that can't be named. Okay, Gary, I'm inviting you once more. Neil, Jeffrey asking, maybe it has already been asked, how long will new stock get to reach WB after lockdown? So in terms of refilling our shelves after lockdown, Neil?
And I don't really think we can say. I think the reality is most of the distributors will be the same time we will be. So in theory, it would take about a week or so to get the stocks, the shelves refilled. I think the good news is, I mean, although we're probably 200 stock units down on where we are just before lockdown, there's still some 380 different whiskeys to choose from. So it might not be your favorite bottle of tipple, but there will be something else for you to buy. No doubt a lot of us are fairly desperate to get our hands on a bottle of two.
Yeah.
More, how are you?
Gary, how you doing? Gary, can you hear us?
Is it working now?
It's working. Can you hear us?
Dude, save the drinking for after the show, dude, please.
It's like my first drink today. Christ, man.
I just before I chat to you guys, I just want to on that question as well. Around when will we? How soon does it take us to restock? The truth is, as well, we use almost 25 different suppliers. Different suppliers deliver to us in different times. Some of them are based in Cape Town, some are Yearbook. So the truth is, within the first few days of reopening, we should be able to get some stock back on the shelves. But I reckon, I mean, it will probably be quite a long, 2-week process to get fully kitted out again.
Yeah.
Gary, do you have a whiskey in hand? What are you drinking?
I'm actually drinking a Belle Blair 97 single cask.
Nice.
You couldn't even drink one of ours, dude.
Those are coming next, champ. It's the ones I have are for later. So I've got my WhiskyBrother, the favorite bottling of all time.
Yeah, fair enough. It's a goodie.
And then, unfortunately, I have to delve into the sherry casks. But one of my favorite sherry casks that we did.
Cry everyone a river.
Yeah.
Sherry casks are for the inexperienced palate, Neil.
Okay, fair enough.
I can see the viewer numbers just plummeting. It's just like guys are failing left and right. So Luch, the Anok's your favorite? Is that what you just said?
Without a doubt, dude. It's one of the only bottlings I think we've done that has really shown it gives the spirit of the distillery. It really shines through. Maybe I'm forgetting a couple offhand. I know the Wolfburn kind of was very similar aspect, but there's just something currently what I like drinking at the moment, which is just amazing first full bourbon casks. You just can't beat it.
No.
And it's been my thing for the last 3 months. But
You say shows the character of the distillery, but I mean, Anok's usual character is unpeated. But I know what you're saying.
No, of course, but you can taste the good distillate, and they definitely make good distillate. And there is something about it. And I've heard a lot of people say they don't quite enjoy the peated Anok, a few of the online guys, but just there's something about it. And all whiskey is a personal thing, and this is just an absolute cracker, man.
Right, nice. Neil, your can you pick one? I find it hard to.
Yeah, listen, I mean, I think, unlike Gary, I probably don't go through like 3 or 4 month phases of where I consume something ad nauseum and then change my mind on what's my favorite. I think I generally, depending on the time of day, depending on the day of the week, depending on the company, sometimes you need a stronger drink. It will probably depend on what
was that a dig?
And what's that?
Was that a dig? I don't understand.
A little bit, yeah. I think, generally, obviously, I prefer sherry cask, so, that obviously is one of my favorite styles, but I generally prefer drinking it in winter. In summer, I generally prefer bourbon cask.
Yeah,
I generally, lightly peated. I generally prefer bourbon itself. Scarily, I am actually running low on what I would call drinking bourbon, to chuck a block of ice in and enjoy next to the fire. So, it's getting real. It's getting real.
Yeah, I mean, I think the beauty of it, and I mean, so we've done 26 now, and I mean, the nature of these is that they come and go, and there's always kind of a slice of the selection available at any one time.
Mm.
But I mean, we really have covered most of our bases. I mean, there's plenty more that we'd like to do. We've got more in the pipeline. But if you kind of look back, you can almost tick. We've done a grain, we've done some good age, we've done younger stuff, we've done peats, etc. Sherry,
No.
So
missing that Japanese single cask, legit.
we are. And for those who I mean, somebody actually, this was a question on one of the previous episodes. Would we do a Japanese? The answer is absolutely. It's just incredibly hard to. There's very little Japanese whiskey available in Japan these days. That's the sad and honest truth. With that being said, I think you can see kind of
Marc's doing everything for a chichibu. Eh?
Yeah, I'm
He'll do anything for a chichibu.
For guys who know, I'm a massive chichibu fan, and we've been, as WhiskyBrother, we've been waiting and wanting a chichibu cask. We're still waiting and wanting. Every 6 months, I remind Chiro that hey, and the next reminder will kind of just.
There's your mistake. Every 6 months, Marky.
You need to pass that on to Gary. It'll be once a day. Until next week, then it'll be twice a day.
We would have been on our third cast by now.
Yeah. So I mean, surely in time we can. I mean, I think it'd be a possibility, but not.
I mean, the thing is, it's possible for us to bottle a Japanese, but then we'd probably have to dig into something that's really not enjoyable. And I don't want to bring out some of the things that have been bottled for the South African market. No, 100%. So that's what we've always got to look what we can sell and what we can't sell. But we've got the chance to get Japanese stuff, but we just don't want that kind of stuff that's on offer.
Yeah. I mean, so no offense to kind of Mars, right? So I like Mars and Kashi. They're good distilleries, but based on their history, the stuff that they're bottling now is quite young. There's been some good stuff, so it's
sure.
It's not about just capitalizing on the demand and trying to get something out there, right? I mean, we really want something that represents WhiskyBrother, that we're proud to put our name on. For me, that would be Chichibu, just for obvious reasons. I mean, would we take a Yoichi or a Miyagikyo? Of course, but there's not a chance in hell that would be available, right? I mean, nobody in the world gets a single cask, Yoichi.
Anymore.
Unfortunately, not. Yeah.
Anymore. Or for the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And if we did get a Yoichi single cask, everyone would be buying it at like 10K a bottle, and it's
yeah.
There's no point. We'll never be able to sell it.
We can only get something that there's kind of to some degree of demand for. So as many, as if we could get a Yoichi single cask, guys would absolutely want it. But at 10,000 rand a bottle, 20,000 rand a bottle, nobody's going to buy it.
I mean, you say that, but I mean, humorously, if we really had a single cask Yoichi, guys would be buying it at 10 grand a pop, just because we're the only guys in the world for the last 5 years that have done one.
Yeah,
it's probably appreciated better than Bitcoin.
There's lots of hypotheticals here. So, I mean, do we want to give? So at the moment, by my count, we've got 5 in the pipeline. 5 WhiskyBrothers kind of in the pipeline. For the sake of kind of, we can't reveal them all. The truth is, they don't always come to fruition. I think there are one or two that we're happy to mention. So maybe Gary, you want to tell us about the one coming from Dr. Rachel Barry's table?
Right. So that's our latest Glendronach. You're gonna have to refresh my memory on the age, Mark. Was it 11-year-old?
Slagged off cast strength sherry.
Yeah. Okay. So
slag it off, man. Oh my word! Wow. So how much have you had to drink today? Clearly not enough, eh? Oh, people about to learn the feud between the two of us. Eh?
There's no feud.
I think if I like the commentary here from me is that we talk about whiskey being subjective, and if you just look at the team across WB, we all have different opinions, and that's how it should be. We're
exactly.
Good whiskey drinking.
I mean, everyone.
The selection process is always an argument, much more heated than this. I'll promise you that much.
Or maybe that's why the Anok was so good, because we had nothing to do with the selection. Eh?
No, listen. I mean, we've had probably probably 4 or 5 blind casts, maybe 6. I mean, all the Duncan Taylors were blind. The Kilhoman was blind. I mean, Kilhoman generally really good stuff.
That was a cask share, though, wasn't it?
It was a cask share. With a Hungarian company.
So we left it up to those guys. Wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, we got the dregs, but it turned out to be pretty good. So, sometimes we go with the
I haven't heard in a while.
We're going quite far back now already. I mean, it's hard to believe it was that long ago.
Yeah. And generally, we get the opportunity to try. I mean, the Glendronach, we 3 samples, I guess.
This current one that's coming, you're talking, eh?
Yeah, that's coming in now.
Yeah. It was 3 samples. I think it was 2 PXs and an Oloroso, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
That Oloroso was diabolical. Eh?
So we've got it's a PX coming, and it's 11-year-old single cask strength, WhiskyBrother exclusive. Status: it's been bottled, it's been labeled. It can't leave Scotland until kind of we get into a little bit more of a open market. So I guess ETA, that all depends on when things start opening up, but we hope by the end of the year it's on our shelves. Yeah.
From value proposition, I think it'll be with the best value for money to come into SA possibly ever. It represents insane value for money.
Do we have
Your guys sound also bad?
Gary, no, Neil's. It's just Neil sounds a little dodgy.
Okay. Are you punching a laptop again?
Well, I'm punching you the way your face is on the screen.
Neil, what's do we know kind of what's the expected retail price plus or minus for the Glendronach?
I think it was just under 800 Rand a bottle retail. So for a cask strength single cask Glendronach, what was it? 11 years old, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 11. I can't remember the ABV, but I think they were punchy, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, the ABV on the
alcohol.
Yeah, from an alcohol point of view. Yeah. I remember them all being very high, man. Let's hope things don't change with what the Rand sitting in the toilets at the moment. But we've got a contract signed.
Let's not go down that road. Let's not talk about contracts.
I'm pretty sure the alcohol is about 60, right? It's like plus or minus 60, like give or take 1 or 2 up or down. It's a cracker.
I don't think any of them
pretty drinkable though. It's pretty drinkable, and it's similar to the rum cask. I mean, at 60, you'd think it was probably 50. It drinks very easily for the alcohol.
I mean, as we know from this one as well, right? I mean, 66.9 sherry monster, but completely drinkable, absolutely delicious. All right. So, I mean, Neil, if you could have your pick of the, let's say, Scottish, distilleries, what would you like to see us bottle one day when available?
One day. All right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, when you poured that for me blind 7 years ago, I guessed it was Macallan because it was so reminiscent of sort of the 10-year-old cask strength Macallans of old. I mean, we genuinely get a sherry cask strength 12-year-old Macallan. That'd be amazing.
Unlikely, but sure.
Unlikely, yeah.
It would be,
Sure,
it
sell
would be
your
more
house,
expensive than the Yorkshire.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So no, look, that'd be amazing. I mean, we've got so many in the pipeline, I guess, we have access to. I guess that's probably one that we almost will never get access to, and probably for that reason I'd like access to it. I mean, we've got the cost of the sister distillery. Come on, Highland Park.
Yeah, twice.
2 Highland Parks equals quarter cask of
Zero
Macallan's.
Macallan's.
Exactly.
And Gary, for yourself, what if you could have a choice?
Well, I mean, there's obviously, hopefully, we'll be bottling something that will be coming in late this year or next year. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. That's something I've been pushing on for a very long time. I really hope that comes to fruition. And Springbank. It has to be Springbank. Yeah, of course it is. It's a gaming word.
It's a gaming word.
So Springbank is your top
I think it'd have to be a Springbank, dude. Either, well, if we're not talking about money or anything like that, a Springbank or Bourbon.
Okay.
Fair enough. Yeah, those are good options.
Well, Springbank, I'll take a Hazelburn, I'll take a Long Road.
I'll take a Kilkerran.
I'll take a Long Road.
I'm a big Kilkerran fan, even. Ryan is saying, what about an odd big release? I mean, these are all pipe dreams. Some of these distilleries, let's be clear,
Well, there's no chance.
They don't do them for anyone. So it's not the fact that we're South African or the money's not there. It's the fact that odd big do not do single casks for any retailer anywhere. Nor do Springbank generally. I mean, they do for markets.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. There you go.
For the markets they do though. But
I guess the good news is there's still so many out there that we haven't done, right? We'll just keep going through the list.
I'd like to do some weird distilleries, man, like Balmenic.
Yeah.
We're
working on that.
The seeds have been planted there. The seeds have been planted. Chris, if you want, you know what to do.
Everyone's like, who's Chris? Chris is not watching. All right, cool. I mean, anything else you guys want to? I have no formal agenda for the show, so.
No, I mean, I think it is worth talking about the selection process when we genuinely get to sit down and choose these casks. We've had some truly amazing experiences, and I mean, I think at the top of the list, obviously, without sounding like a brown noser, there's no question. Three Ships, the process is absolutely
spectacular.
The best process we've ever been through.
Yeah.
Whether we were in a what's that? Yeah, we were
felt like a whiskey rock star.
Yeah, and I think whether we were in a sound state by the end of the process, I mean that probably not. I mean, you go through six or seven iterations of cask strength magic down at James Cedric Distillery, and then you kind of delve deeper into the options they have on offer. We were in a pretty bad way, to be honest, by the time we left there. But I mean, from a process point of view, it was absolutely epic. And we've had some other good ones, but there's no question that was in a way the best. I mean, the first Aaron cask we chose was
that was one of the hardest selections I think we've ever had to do, though, as well, dude. Like every single dram was just awesome.
Yes, I mean, we were, we want to go into who is right and who is wrong because it's all about subjectivity,
Wow.
We've had other guys whinge about certain selections that I've managed. I'll say win on. I know Duran whinged one of our particular selections. One or two of the other guys did. Wine cask can be a tricky thing. I know the first Aaron we did as well was pretty humorous. And back in those days, in theory, in our selection point of view, we were noobs. We didn't know what we were doing. And you sit down and 6 different drams from 6 what are essentially identical casks sitting in the exact same warehouse, and every single nose is different. And then you kind of delve into it deeper, and every single palate is different, and every single finish is different, and you get the DNA running through them. But we're all going to kind of choose a different cask on it.
Yeah, but I think it's safe to say it's not like we're noobs and stuff. It's just more of everyone likes what they like at the end of the day, and obviously we go to a voting process to see who likes what. We don't always agree on what we're going to bottle, and there's been a couple of casks that I've not agreed with you guys that I thought were not.
Yeah, of course.
But
Yeah.
that's just my opinion compared to the majority that clearly liked it. So
I think,
Yeah,
what's
I mean,
some of
For
our
the guys-
most popular bottlings from a sales point of view as well haven't necessarily been my favorite. The Inchmuren, for example, I don't have a bottle here. My wife is very upset about it, but it was juice. It was sweet juice, and it absolutely appealed to 90% of our customers out there, and they loved it. But for me, it was a whiskey I could have one of, and then I was like, "Whew, okay, I'm borderline diabetic. I need to move on."
Yeah, it's very sweet.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree, but I don't find in certain markets, certain palates, though, and I find the South African market, the South African palate, tends to sway more towards sherry cask
It does.
and
It does.
wine cask. It seems to be.
You say that, and I mean, there definitely are sherry fans out there. I think the difficulty South Africa has is that the sherry variety of whiskey we have is not as great as other markets, and so there's in general there's more of a demand. Like guys like, I want a sherry bomb because what are my choices? A Buna from Abelauer, which is great, nothing wrong. Glenfarclas 105, but I've drunk those. Like, what's new, what's single cask. And so when we do get those, there's obviously there's kind of this I think like immediacy where people want it. But I mean, having said that,
I always find
we know from just in general, if you look across, is different people prefer different styles, and that makes sense.
100%.
As we do,
and that's what makes whiskey awesome. If we all can sit here and we all like the same thing, this would be boring.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, and it would also mean that would be insanely expensive. So you need to divert and drink the cheapest stuff.
Yeah. We've I have a few questions. Dean is asking, have we ever done a Kilhoman? The answer is yes. I'd love to do another Kilhoman. They've come a long way since we did ours back in 2015. The distillery then was also quite young. They've got much older stock available, so we'd love to revisit Kilhoman sometime.
They've got some amazing stuff.
Yeah, they really do. I'm a big fan. And that first Kilhoman, like, I know it is good, but it's not my. I feel like it wasn't. Yeah, for certain reasons, I'd like to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we recently got a bottle of single sherry cask done for the US from one of our mates who went over there. If he's watching, thank you. It's honestly one of the best Kilhomans I've ever had. Absolute cracker, and also 60% alcohol, but a sherry beast, and with tons of peat. It's just insanely good.
Yeah. Your sound's gone bad then, Ozzy. I don't know if it's.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm gonna get rid of you two shortly.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We've got Ryan asking, would we ever do something from the emerging Irish distillers? I'd love to. I'm sure you guys would as well. Whether it's a single malt or a pot still. I think based on the new number of distilleries in Ireland, that should absolutely be an option going forward. Back in 2012, the first few years, it was not an option, right? There just was such few distilleries available. Unless Bushmills was going to give you a cask, or Middleton, which at that time was not going to happen, or Cooley. Now there's so many more options. So to answer Ryan's questions, I'd love to do some Irish going forward.
Oh, we would love to, but I mean, we did get some of the pricing for some of that Middleton stuff, and it was quite robust.
Yeah.
Robust is kind.
Yeah. All right. Maybe what I'll do while you guys are still here wrapping up, I'm going to ask a few questions. Andy's asking a question. Andy Watts, does the funds from the Rally project come directly to you guys, Marc? Really hoping that it does to provide a little relief. Andy, thank you very much for the question. Just if anyone's not aware, there's kind of an online campaign called Rally for Your Bar and Restaurant. So the WhiskyBrother bar has been listed there. And it gives you the opportunity to buy a voucher. So you're supporting us now, and you get a 50% top up on your voucher. And then when we come out of lockdown and the bar can open again, you come through and you use your voucher. So thank you. We put it out in the newsletter earlier this week. It was posted online. We've had some good responses. So thank you to everyone who's kind of bought a voucher. We really do appreciate it. And to answer Andy's question. Andy, we do get the funds coming to us. It's not immediate, but with a short delay. That does mean that the money's coming into the account, and we can use that then to help cover the staff expenses, look after the staff, and meet our kind of our financial obligations. So thank you to all those who've supported us. And I know Andy bought a voucher. even though it's in daytime, so we appreciate that. To either of you, there's a question from Reese on the topic of the 3 Chips WhiskyBrother Moscato cask. Where does the J's Distillery get their peated malt from? I don't recall that they do the peating in-house. Do either of you guys know the answer to that?
As far as I'm aware, Andy will obviously, but I think they bring all their malt from Scotland.
Yeah. So
as far as I'm aware, yeah.
My recollection as well. So Reese, to answer your question, James Sedgwick for 3 Ships, they get their peated malt from Scotland. I know Andy's watching, and we do appreciate it. So if he has anything to add, he's welcome to drop that into the comments for some additional information. Oh, actually, I say that, but I see Andy's actually responded to the question. So there's more information there. And he's saying we import our barley from a commercial maltster in the UK, according to our specifications.
Is Andy willing to disclose who he actually orders a malt from?
Yeah, well, I guess Andy, if you don't mind, maybe in the comments you can just tell us where, if you can, if it's open information, which maltster you use in the UK to get your barley. Okay, thanks, gents. Anything you want to say?
Can I, Marc, I just want to ask Andy actually one more question. Something that popped into my head this morning was if 3 Ships if he's ever done any unpeated malt, something like Kalila do their unpeated version once a year. If 3 Ships is ever going to be doing something like that, or if he's done something like that, if he's happy to disclose that kind of information.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure Andy, if you can, will. Maybe when you're done here, Gary, just going to ask a question. I see Andy commenting on those, so
Simpsons.
He can then answer the question. Oh, Simpsons. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Anything else you guys want to say?
Cool. Just keep safe. Happy drinking.
Enjoy the whiskeys.
All right. Cheers, guys. All right. Thanks to Gary and Neil for joining us. I struggle with time. I mean, it's already 1:45, and I can talk to Neil and Gary about whiskey just like I can sit and talk to everyone here watching about whiskey for days. But yeah, I hope that really wasn't. There was no real informative, piece of information there. I think just generally, it's maybe interesting to hear some of the background about some of the bottlings. I think for me, what's important there is just the obvious subjectivity that we talk to whiskey drinkers all the time, and everyone has their thoughts on what they like and what they don't like, and that's how it should be. That's what we expect. And as you can see, just having Neil, Gary, and myself up between 3 people, such differences of opinion, and that's the beauty of whiskey, right? We all like different things, and there is so much out there that we can all find something we like, and we'll find something that we don't maybe love, and that's completely okay. I'm looking at some of the questions. So we still have plenty of questions, and I am quite keen. So I'm going to answer 2-3 questions, and I'm going to bring up somebody else. The open stock must be oxidizing well in the bar. This is from Vernon. Can't wait to get at them. I think you might have to implement a ballot system for entry to the bar post-lockdown. Vernon, I can't wait to get back either. Yes, I mean, I'm not really worried in terms of oxidization. It's been 6 weeks. That's not a particularly long time. It's a cool environment. It's there's no open windows, so in terms of storing the bottles at the bar, there's no potential risk with regards to kind of the flavor diminishing or anything like that. The truth is, we don't know what it will look like when we do open the bar in terms of social distancing, how many people in a particular area or per square meter. The truth is, we very much hope that once the bar opens, we do have a flood of people wanting to come to try and make up for a bit of lost time, and we'll be ready and waiting. Obviously, we'll do it as safe as necessary. And if we do have to limit capacity, then we may have to look at a ballot system, which would be it's quite humorous, it's quite ironic, but it's quite sad, and we'd be quite thankful that there is demand. We have a question from HOLLO, Holo. Holo is new to the WhiskyBrother family. Welcome. How long can you store whiskey for? Does it deteriorate under certain conditions, and what are the best conditions to store it under? Really good question. I'm not going to delve too deeply into this now, but I will post a comment maybe afterwards as well. Come check. But in terms of how long can you store whiskey for, if it is sealed, if it is full and sealed and kept well, you can practically store it indefinitely. So the key to storing whiskey for an indefinite period is don't keep it on its side. Just as an example, don't do this. right? The alcohol will slowly kind of eat through the cork, and you get have leakage and access to air for oxidization. Don't keep it in sun. Keep it in an environment that is consistent in terms of temperature. The lower the better, and in terms of humidity, not overly humid at all, and not too dry either. So for kind of, if you're in South Africa and you put it in the back of a cupboard that's cool, then you should be fine. If it's near a window and there's sun coming through, or the window's open, that bottle is going to experience a lot more temperature and humidity fluctuations, and then you are expediting potential evaporation through the seal. So if it's full and stored, if it's full and sealed, it's quite easy to store. Just be cognizant of temperature and sunlight, etc. And if it's open, you can still store it for quite a long time. Same thing, you keep it in kind of lower temperature, lower fluctuation, out of sun. What I do find is generally when a bottle gets quite a bit lower, you do get more air in the bottle, of course, and you get more oxidization. And so my general rule of thumb is if a bottle is maybe down to a quarter, try and drink it in the next 6 months. If it's something very special, then maybe drink it a bit sooner, just so that you don't risk losing some of that flavor and nuance. Thank you for your question. All right, I'm quite keen to bring up just a kind of a whiskey enthusiast, not a member. He's a member by association. He's part of the family without a doubt. That individual is Peter Van Us. Peter is just a whiskey friend of ours. He is a customer. He is a whiskey enthusiast first and foremost. He's a friend of ours. If you come into the shop, if you are based in Yearbook and you're in the shop on a Saturday, if Peter's in town, Peter will be at the shop. He is one of the most generous people I know. He will pour anything. He will buy a bottle to open, to share, or to give away. Sometimes in the store, people refer to Peter as kind of Father Christmas. And so, Peter, how are you? Nice to see you.
Good. Welcome to everybody, and thanks for the invite, Marc. Yes, I actually, as a matter of fact, I pretty much only started drinking whiskey when I did my first step into the WhiskyBrother shop in Hyde Park. So that's barely 6 years ago, and I guess you guys taught me what realms whiskey has. I ended up collecting, my collection is closed distilleries. I thought that would be good for value. If they don't produce anymore and there's demand like I was seeing, then of course that would lead to something gathering value. And I remember that I was even in a little race in the early days with Michelle, trying to get the Port Ellens that you guys once in a while got. We even shared bottles and had them there at the shop, so it was great. And yes, from that has come a collection, 400 odd bottles, but I drank them all because of COVID.
Is that why there's nothing behind you?
Marc asked if I could show my collection. I can't. It's in the garage. I just moved. I still need to build a cupboard or something. I will, but yes, I don't. I took out some bottles. One is this one that I have been drinking. It's great, Four Roses, and barrel strength. This one specifically from 2014. Again, two clan members of WhiskyBrother, Duran and Duncan, are the typical people I go to ask, is that a good bottle to buy? They then invariably always tell me that I've tried it before and why I'm asking. And then they also say, but you have that bottle at home. So I found one for the two of you, great, and it's delicious. In terms of what I like and what I'm now going to serve myself, also bought at your shop. A Kleinish, 23 years old, 57, limited edition. So I'm going to have a little bit of that. A fantastic whiskey. And really remember, no, that's not true. I generally don't remember anything I drink. And that's why it's so great. Every time I open this bottle, it's a treat. And it is so yet again.
I guess, yeah, Peter, there's a pro and con to maybe your when it comes to whiskey, your ability to forget what you've consumed, because then when you go back to a real special dram, it's like you're trying it for the first time again.
For me, my brain cells, this is good. You see, there you go. I had forgotten about this one. This one is really spectacular. So, bought it at your shop, guys. Can you see it now?
We can see it. Those are rare. Those are very rare, right? I mean, the rare malts that would have been bottled almost 20 years ago. Not easy to find.
No, great. And then in a ride with you guys, I also joined the clan outing to Islay, which was superb. And Gary, just in case he didn't buy this shirt, this was the only one he didn't buy. So it was we went to Beaumont. We went to very briefly to Kaulila. That was not on the big agenda, I guess, but Kilhoman. We saw Ardnahoe. We couldn't really taste anything back then, Marc, but we saw it. So yes, I guess it's become a staple of mine, and the Saturday's horrible that it's not possible anymore. Also have a little bit of a traveling job, but every time Saturday informal, that let's call it the mini bar. It's where somehow a part of the clan comes together always, and we share and try and taste and buy. And I've go ahead.
No, so I just want to say, Peter. I mean, I'd like to think here. So there's this opportunity just to speak to kind of a general audience. And the truth is, not everyone can make it to the shop. Some people are online. Some people are not in Joburg. Some people can't make it on a Saturday. But I think for me, what is special about those Saturdays, and this can be done anywhere, is just about sharing whiskey. It's about opening bottles and sharing it with people that appreciate it. And if people can't come on a Saturday, let's just say to meet you, or they come in and you're not there, it's still about just, actually being passionate about whiskey. We all love it, and we all want to share and learn from each other, right? I mean, and that's people can do that no matter where they are, and that's the real appeal for those Saturday sessions. And people can mimic that, on their own terms. If they can't, obviously they're invited. We'd love to have everybody, but we know that's not the reality, particularly under the current circumstances.
Yeah, so it's great if this relaxes one way or another, and we can go back. And then there's obviously your Morningside bar where you can have that gigantic collection. So great. And you always end up there because the way you chose to design the bar, it is about whiskey. And I think you can get a coffee, bloody good coffee, by the way, no problem with that. But it is about whiskey. And I think you end up there with people that with amateurs in the Latin way of to love something. We all love whiskey, and heated debates, love sharing stuff with people, and I think it's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah. So we're all amateurs, right? Let's be honest, we're all amateurs.
Yeah. So I'm happy that I somehow found my way to you guys. I used to live nearby in Hyde Park, so it was an easy find. But out of that has come a lot of friendships, and I think fantastic ones. With everything that we've done so far, it seems like I know everybody for 20 years, and I just appeared into Joburg some 5-6 years ago. So a great bunch of whiskey lovers, let's put it that way. A good plan.
Thank you for your kind words, Peter. We were mentioning, we were talking about the WhiskyBrother releases. Is there one in particular that comes to your mind as kind of a favorite or a competitor to a favorite?
I really like, no secret here, Marc. I do like the peated whiskies. So I loved Islay. That was for me a fantastic tour. It tends to be a little bit peaty. I also, therefore, whatever bottle you have of Octomore, I devour. I just love it. But also, if you take the more delicate ones, I took a big liking to Anok. Didn't know of it. You guys sort of stocked quite a good range. I think maybe the entire range at a point in time. So I love that, from its light expressions of the 12-year-old all the way up to the really dried fruit Christmas cakey ones. So fantastic assortment. But my tendency would be a little bit the peaty. I think from a distillery perspective, Kilchoman would be a absolute. I like Kilchoman. It's one of my favorites. But there's many more. And again, maybe the interesting bit is not having a favorite, but just being wowed every time with one that I, for instance, have this one that I also bought at your shop. Can you see it?
Yes, Bravel. I'm a big fan of Bravel.
Yeah, and it's just a totally different whiskey, and I love it. And it's a sticky toffee, fills your mouth with it. Totally different to anything I had drunk before. It has a very oily substance to it. So for me, it's about the wealth of difference in this whole whiskey palette. And then you've got the bourbons, and I also ended up buying closed distilleries. So I bought the every time you guys had a Karuizawa there somewhere, I snatched it up, drank a few of those, and they are just superb, so different. Yeah. So a favorite? No, I don't have a favorite. I just like the diversity of it.
Yeah. So Peter, just before I let you go, so in terms of so you're first and foremost a drinker, right? Which is what we should all be. You're also then a collector, as you mentioned. 400 odd bottles. Your focus is very much around closed distilleries, Rosebank, Brora, Port Ellen, Karuizawa, etc. I mean, what as a collector, what do you hope will happen to your collection in time? I mean, is it, yes, it's nice to know that it's appreciating in value, but is your intention to drink that one day, or is your intention to kind of maybe realize the returns and buy other whiskey or travel to Scotland?
The tragedy is that I sold a lot back to you guys. Now I regret it all, and I started again. And I don't know if for me it's about selling. I just once in a while I get curious and I open it. So it's not also about really. I've not gone into it to create value in that sense. But I love this idea of distilleries that don't exist anymore, and it just has a tremendous appeal to me, and maybe I'll convert it into value. They've done phenomenally well in general, the closed distilleries. And if you take the good ones, the Broras have just, but even Gambas, I mean, they're fantastic whiskey, and they've done well. So I think it's a good collection to if you can, to mount. You'll end up drinking a bit of it. It's irresistibly good. I think they are not things that are sought after. And if you take maybe Port Ellen went through the roof with its pricing, but in the early, so 5-6 years ago, when it was sort of palatable in terms of price, they're fantastic whiskeys. Not for nothing do people taste them. Broras are superb whiskeys. And so you end up drinking them. But I guess, you'll convert some in value. I remember that we've also sold a few bottles in the auction. That went well. So I think in general, whiskey as a category has done well from a value perspective. I'm not really in it for the value. I just love being busy with it.
Right, absolutely. And I mean, there's something for a closed distillery. And look, let's be honest, they out of kind of financial reach from a lot of drinkers, including myself. Some of these can be eye-watering prices. They weren't always that way. So depending on how long you've been doing this, 5-6 years ago, you could pick up some of these closed distilleries for better pricing. But the truth is, you have a piece of history, right? I mean, and I think for me as a drinker, as a collector, that's the beauty of it. I collect Bravel as an example, just because I love the distillery. My plan is to drink them all. But now I can, it's nice to have that assortment of closed bottles to look back on. So it's that there's a romanticism. Yeah, I love Bravel. We actually, so Michelle's asking you a question, saying, Peter, with some of the distilleries reopening, will you still be collecting their bottlings? I think that's a great follow-up question.
Joe, what are you asking? You're collecting the same bottles as I am. Michelle, I think, Michelle, my point is they will know, even if Port Ellen is opening, they are, and even if Brora is opening right next to Kleinish, and they are, and Diageo is a good marketing company, and they will exploit that brand equity. They will, of course they will, they should. But before they produce a Port Ellen that I have in my cupboard, 30 years old, or 27 or 29, it's going to take them a quarter of a century, and second is they might not get it right the next time.
Absolutely.
These are different stills. This is a completely new factory. To me, it has nothing to do with those beauties that you and I have been buying, Michel, and therefore I'm not afraid of it at all. And I'm not afraid of Brora, even where some distilleries still have the stills. The fact that they've been dormant for 20, 30 years is enough for me to say that it'll take them 50 years before they get to anything like what we've been buying and tasting. So no, I'm not afraid of that at all, and I'll keep on buying if I can.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that's a good response. All right, Peter. So I just wanted to share the screen time. It's wonderful to see you. We love you on behalf of everyone in the audience. If you don't know Peter, hopefully you'll get to meet him at the shows. We'll know him. But Peter, I hope you and your family are keeping well. Slan Javar, and thanks for just kind of coming on and saying hi.
Take care.
We'll have you back on once you've got your collection up on display again.
Well, if I don't drink it, I will proudly expose it.
All right, brilliant. All right, take care. Cheers. So thank you very much for Peter for joining us. There was a question, and I think the gentleman's asked it once or twice over the last few episodes. I think that it was an individual called Mikey, and it was very much around, would we be interested in terms of the live streams of having collectors up or other, whiskey, South African whiskey lovers that have some collections at home to show off their collections? And the answer is yes. My intention was for Peter to be kind of the first of the kind. Irony happens that Peter's recently moved houses. All his whiskey is in boxes. But once I reached out to him, we wanted to see him anyway and say hi. Friendly, familiar face. I think we're already now touching an hour. I'm going to go through a few questions. Just look at the comments in the chat, and then I'm very keen to get Valentine up on stage for a few minutes also just to say hi. But actually, let me do this. I'm going to get Val up, and then between Val and I, we can answer some of the questions. So, Valentine, we're about to get an invitation. Val has been invited up. I think everyone, I don't want to assume anything. So Valentine is the WhiskyBrother bar manager in Morningside. Valentine has been with WhiskyBrother for, I think it's 5 years plus, and valued member of the WhiskyBrother family, and very much a whiskey brother. And so I've invited Val up. Let's just see him join us. And then we can answer some questions. So while we're waiting for Val, I'm going to just answer a few more questions. We have a question from Dieter. Suggestion: you have such a big online selection. What about adding WB favorites from the WB staff? Very good question, and it is in the works. So we do our top 10 every month, and also just to give a good indication of what people are finding interesting and what's new and popular. But we'll start doing a staff picks. So watch this space. The lockdown, if anything, has given us a little bit more time to get some of these plans underway. So once we're back up and running, we will. That's something that will be coming. So great idea, and we're on it. A question from Ryan Erasmus: do you have any news on the Oddbeg Fragile bottling stock of this year, and if/when it will be arriving? Good question. It is something I did want to address as well. We, as a market, South Africa will be getting the Oddbeg release this year. It's the annual Oddbeg Day release. This year is called Black. It is BLAAKCK. It is partly finished in Pinot Noir casks, if I'm not mistaken. We had Brendan McCarran on, I think 2-3 weeks ago. I should really remember all this. But to answer your question, Ryan, South Africa is getting stock. It will be limited stock, just as it is every year. It will not be available on Oddbeg Day, because by then we don't even know if we'll be operating. The stock is, as far as I know, from the local kind of brand agents, is at the Ports Authority. So once the ports start opening up and alcohol can be transported and moved again, then that stock will be cleared. And then once WhiskyBrother's open, we will be getting our stock. So just watch our newsletter, watch online, watch future episodes of the live stream, and we'll update everyone. It's usually 1 bottle per person because they sell out on the weekend of the Oddbeg Day. It's also a good, I think it's a good punch just to say that. So Oddbeg Day have announced that they will be doing kind of a live online event. which I think is great because most of us do not get to Fajil. I myself have been to Isla, but not for the festival. And even if you can get there, it's really nice to be able to join online. So this year it is cancelled, but at the end of the month, I believe it's May 30th. So this month on the 30th, they will have an online program. We're still announcing details, but maybe mark it in your calendar. Mickey Heads is participating. He's the outgoing distillery manager, and I'll be watching in. I think it'll be a great event. I'm going to quickly check on Val again. Excuse any delay. Let's just invite him back up, and then we'll get back to questions. We've got a question from Vernon. Will you get a Springbank single cask? So Vernon, I mean, you heard from Gary. We would absolutely love a Springbank single cask. Val will get you now. But for a Springbank, don't generally do them for retailers. They do them for markets. So you'll see there'll be a single cask Springbank for the UK, or a Springbank single cask for Germany, etc., or for Japan. We're very much have raised our hand and said, hey, we'd love to get it for the market, whether or not it's exclusive to WhiskyBrother, and we're kind of just waiting on the space. I think that the difficulty with Springbank is that there's, the volume is quite limited, but the demand is exceptionally high. Massive following, and they would have a big waiting list, and so we'll kind of hopefully we're in that queue, but how long that will take, we don't know. But would we absolutely would love to, and I know, I mean that was number one on Gary's list. Val, how you doing, brother?
Hey, doing all right, man, and you?
Yeah, good. What's up with that shirt? That's a bit of a kind of a low cut there. Right? I know you've been home for 6 weeks, but this is a work function.
Yeah, it's looking like it's a big cut because I've lost a little bit of weight, man.
Okay, all right. So someone says it's a double V. How are you and the family keeping?
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Yeah, good. You still have some whiskey?
Yeah. Pardon?
You still have some whiskey at home?
Yeah, I'm actually having some iron right now.
Oh, nice.
Gonna move on to something else a little bit later.
Okay. So I was just keen to just get you up and say hi to you as well, and let you say hi to everybody else. We've got a whole, we've got Michelle and Gary and Emil, everyone saying hi to you.
Hey guys.
Out of the WB bottlings, and it's just because it's been a bit of a theme this show. What which other bottlings is one of your favorite or something that comes to mind?
I think my number one pick with all the bottlings that we've had so far. I mean, we've got what? We've done 24 now.
26.
26.
Yeah.
The first bottling, that'll always be my favorite. That 15-year-old 1998 vintage Glenlivet. Yeah, that one.
Right.
If it wasn't for the lockdown, I could be driving to your house right now.
I pour you some with pleasure.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite whiskeys. If I could get my hands on, another bottle, that would be great. Do
you have a bottle like archived for yourself, or have you drunk it?
I drank it. It was too good for me to just be looking at it, and it kept on staring at me, and I couldn't resist.
Yeah.
So I just decided to drink it.
What did you think of the follow-up?
That was good. That was good, but I still prefer the first one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so this it's funny because and I think this is the beauty of whiskey, right? So you have these side by side, right?
Yeah.
So both sherry, both single cask, both cask strength, they're both from Glenlivet, both bottled by Signatory, and yet to some degree, it's all relative, but completely different whiskeys.
Yeah, I think
yes, there's a few 11 versus 15, but I mean different cask sizes. But I mean they are so unique unto themselves. So and that's the beauty of doing these, right? Is giving people the opportunity to see just how the casks really differ. I'm gonna pour some of myself.
I think with the second one, because of the very high ABV. It actually makes it a whole lot different. On some occasions, I used to find it a little bit hot.
Yeah.
But a little bit of water, or if you let it sit a little bit, and then it opens up, and then you get all those lovely dried fruit notes.
Yeah.
So.
So I mean, this is color, right? This is for people who don't know, the alcohol on this is 66.9. I mean, it is one of the highest I've ever seen for any Scotch, let alone a Whiskey-Brother exclusive, right? I mean, it's eye-wateringly high. And it's first of all sherry, but the difference here is that it's a hogshead. Right, so 250 liters.
It's definitely not a breakfast whiskey.
Yeah, this is a go to sleep whiskey. So obviously there's some questions that we've been answering. I'm quite keen to, you can answer one or two with me, and we'll keep it a bit more interactive. But there's individuals just saying hi. We've got Stian saying see you soon, Val. We've got Leon saying he agrees. He's got a full bottle, but it's his last. So that's the Glenlivet signatory, the 15-year-old.
I saw Dee as well. Dee was saying that she misses me and the bar. Dee, we miss you too. Can't wait to see you at the bar as soon as we open. Hopefully, we get to open really soon, and
and get back to what we do.
Drinking some whiskey and sharing some drams.
Yeah. All right. So some questions, and so you can just you and I can answer these together. We'll see, depending on the question. We've got Mitch asking, does the Whiskey-Brother arrange tours to different distilleries in Scotland? Right. The answer there is yes. We kind of did almost a trial tour last year. We've got itineraries. It's something we haven't really published much. It was due around this time. So this year we were going to start kind of marketing it. So if you're interested in going to Scotland, drop us an email. Obviously, at the moment we can't go anywhere, but it is something that we will be offering as an ongoing service by the end of this year. So, Val, I mean, I think it's we've taken you. So you in terms of Whiskey-Brother, you've joined me on 2 trips to whiskey countries, not to Scotland. And why is that? Why have you not gone to Scotland yet?
The Brits don't love me, man.
Okay, so I mean, we tried to take you, and your visa got denied because you're on a Zimbabwean passport.
Yes, maybe I'm on one of their watch lists. That's why they keep on denying my visa.
I mean, Mugabe, I know he's gone, but he talked too much shit. Now, when the Brits see a Zimbabwean passport, they don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, but hopefully, if I do another application, then they'll accept it this time, and then I get to go across. It's just to go drink whiskey in Scotland. I think that'll be awesome.
You have to beat Fortune. Fortune's on the queue ahead of you, but hopefully we can get Fortune to Scotland this year, and then I think you're up for a trip next year, eh?
Yeah.
All right. A question from Emil. How are you finding the appetite for bourbon in South Africa? Will we see balcones or bookers in the future? So, I mean, you're at the bar when times are normal. You're at the bar. What have you found in terms of the people coming to the bar and the interest in bourbon?
I think the landscape is, changing a little bit because, most people don't really have that much of info when it comes to bourbon. Because, I mean, you randomly pick 3 guys off the street and you ask them about bourbon. And the first thing that they'll say is Jack Daniels. I think there still is a lot of work to do in order to get guys to drink more and more of bourbon, because bourbon is, some extremely good whiskey. I mean, off the top of my head, Blanton's is one of my favorites. I could drink Blanton's Gold any time of the day, even in the morning, despite it being 55%. So I just think even with the guys who do have access to different varieties of bourbon, guys just need to change their mindset. Don't think about Jack when you're drinking it. Don't compare it to Scotch. Drink it for what it is, because it's an entirely different style of whiskey. I know there's guys who think that bourbon is not whiskey. Bourbon is whiskey. Just think about the ingredients. It's corn versus barley. It's virgin oak versus second-hand barrel. So the taste is going to be totally, on the other side of the spectrum when you compare it to Scotch. So guys just need to try more and more bourbon, because they are missing out on quite, some pretty good whiskey. I mean, remember when we used to do the whiskey and food pairings. I mean, just pairing bourbon with dessert is just amazing.
Yeah.
Whenever we were doing those tastings, the highlight for me was always dessert. I couldn't wait to just have, maybe some Elijah Craig with the caramel pudding.
Yeah.
It just always brought a smile.
I'm out of caramel pudding and out of Elijah Craig at home at the moment.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've got plenty of bourbon there.
I'm a bit short. I would love some more.
Bound to be some Pappy there behind you.
Like Neil, I'm also short on some Blansons. I think, to follow up, so that's very well said and absolutely agree with you. And I think just to reiterate, it's a different style offering. It's a different flavor offering. And unto itself, there's some phenomenal bourbon. I think it's an exciting country to watch, exciting whiskey segment to watch. We see Buffalo Trace with all the experiments. There's so many new craft distilleries like Balcones. And as WhiskyBrother, as a retail perspective, we do our best to try and get as much as we can. We got the Templetons in. No one else got them. They were here because we ordered them. We've had some Bookers come and go. Balcones is a bit of a difficult one to get just because they're quite small and they're internationally very well known. But as we are bourbon fans, and we do our best to try and keep getting new interesting bourbons. We had the Dad's Hat Pennsylvania rye. I'm coupling rye and bourbon just in terms of interesting American whiskey. It's definitely if you what the recommendation I would if you love whiskey but you're only drinking Scotch, you're missing out. Try bourbons. Come to the bar when we're open. Talk to people. Don't just start and drink Jack. And no disrespect to Jack, but it's a particular style. It's like trying one Scotch whiskey and saying, "Oh, you don't like all Scotch." You have to explore it. You have to get to know it. You have to become familiar with the flavors before you can appreciate it and start enjoying it.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking at some of the questions and some of the comments. We've got Emil again, lots of questions. Thank you, saying that we should do a WhiskyBrother Baines bottling. I'm just going to answer that quickly. We'd love to. We've said we would. As a brand, Baines are not doing those type of releases yet. I'd like to think in time, when they're ready, we can talk to them. But they haven't done it with anyone yet. And they're just, in terms of the brand, they're not in a position where they want to start doing it yet. We can't rush these things. It took us 8 years to get a 3 ships release. There's a question from Christian, and I'm guessing maybe it's Christian from the bar. And the question is, any tentative plans to reschedule the whiskey show? I think maybe Christian joined us late. We will reschedule the whiskey show. We just don't know when that will be. We don't want to say, September, and then in September we can't have it. So we'll wait for things to start improving, and then we'll have it. Val will be there as he always is at the WhiskyBrother stand. We'll get down to Cape Town as well. So Cape Town whiskey enthusiasts can kind of meet the WhiskyBrother team. Maybe what else is there? There's actually.
I actually wanted to just add a little bit on the issue of bourbon. As much as there is bourbon, but there's still different other styles on offer, from the American whiskey scene, especially the American whiskeys, the ones that they can't, technically call bourbon because of the cask finishing.
Yeah.
So if you are one of those who doesn't really like the taste of the normal bourbon whiskey, then there's still something else that you can try from the American whiskey scene. They also do single malt as well. I mean, Balcones has got a couple of single malt releases, and they're just getting more and more innovative. The Americans are now exploring, the different types of corn. I never really knew that there was blue corn, until I saw Balcones release that baby blue, and they are always, just like Brooklady, emphasizing the whole terroir, subject that, the different types of corn will have, some effect on the new make spirit.
Absolutely.
So it will be really good to actually try and, sample all of those. And the American guys as well, if any of them are online and listening, I think they also need to come to the party and, try and visit the African whiskey shows. I mean, you always see them all over the world. Jimmy Russell will travel to places like Japan, to go and talk about, bourbon. Why doesn't he come to South Africa? We are bourbon fans. This guy has been in the industry for 60 years. But why don't they make an effort and come and see us as well in Africa, and talk to us about the whiskey? Because, I mean, it would be pretty awesome to meet that guy. I mean, he literally grew up at the distillery and now he's aged and his sons are now, going to take over, or he's already grooming one of them, to take off. It's pretty awesome to actually meet some of those guys and talk to guys like that. Freddie Jackson from Buffalo Trace, it would be pretty awesome to meet those guys. So they just need to make an effort. Come see us.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an excerpt of this video and I'm going to send it to them as motivation. That was a very passionate plea to get guys here.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Val, just for joining us for a few minutes. And always good to
thanks
see
for
you.
having me.
Let you look forward to being at the bar with you as soon as we can.
I'm super looking forward to it, guys. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. We just well, before I let you go, just some comments on when you're talking about bourbon. We've got guys talking about Westland, so we Westland single malt, right? We had some of that wonderful stuff. There's peat in there. There was sherry cask in there. We've got Duncan, and I think also Hardy talking about Garrison Brothers. So we've had some Garrison Brothers come through. Wonderful small distillery. I saw Peter mention Angel's Envy, right? So not your normal bourbon. There you've got some port cask finishes and absolutely stunning stuff. We've had some of it. We try and get as much as we can. It's hard to get in this country, but we put in an effort and get a few bottles. To your point, lots of interesting things happening. Lots of amazing experimentation. Small distilleries, definitely worth checking in if you've been ignoring it because you're missing out. All right, Val. Nice to see you. Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
All right, so I think maybe another 5-10 minutes. I'm going to answer a few questions, a few final questions, and then I think we'll let everyone go. It's the time just flies when we're doing this. I guess that's what happens when you're having fun. That old cliche, but absolutely true. We've got Rob Eden asking, would we ever consider opening a WhiskyBrother branch in Cape Town? Rob, yes, we absolutely would. This year was meant to be kind of quite a expensive year for WhiskyBrother. We had some nice plans in place to kind of get out there a little bit more. I'm not saying Cape Town specifically, I just mean in general. Those plans are all now definitely on hold and most likely just shifted out till we recover from this. We're burning through kind of, a little bit of cash flow for the last 2 months and still we don't know when we're going to get back to trading. Has an impact on us, and not to be too somber, but those inexpensive plans we had are definitely will be pushed out. But in terms of Cape Town, we would love to be there. I know we kind of grew up in Yearbook, so to speak, in terms of the brand. At the time, it's quite ironic because, almost 10 years ago, there was a lot more whiskey happening in Cape Town. That's where most of the brands were. That's where they were based. That's where the reps were. And I think over the last 10 years, we've seen definitely a shift from Cape Town to Yearbook. As a Yearbook-based whiskey drinker, I felt like Yearbook didn't have the offering I wanted, which is part of the impetus to start WhiskyBrother. And now I think the irony is when you look at Cape Town, there really is not much happening there, sadly. And that was one of the reasons that we wanted to take the Only Whiskey Show to Cape Town, to start getting there, start getting a feel for people, not people, but for the kind of, I guess, the market, for the whiskey scene, and let people know that we're doing cool stuff. So we'd love to get there. Hopefully, I'd like to say it will happen. It's just a matter of time. But we would love to be there. In the meantime, hopefully, this is a great outlet for us to interact and engage and reach new faces and new whiskey enthusiasts, and hopefully, kind of the Cape Town audience tuning in to some degree. And we know there's plenty of whiskey drinkers there. We see the orders online, so we do know that people are ordering from us. But as great as that is, it's also no substitute for sitting down and sharing a whiskey. And hopefully we can do that with you in time. We got a question around Ardnahoe. So what about looking at Ardnahoe single cask, long-term plan? That's from Derek. So Derek, yes, I mean, in terms of WhiskyBrother, we have a very good relationship with Douglas Lang. We are almost one of the we have exclusive access to some of their lines, like the Olden Rares. And we when Ardnahoe have a single malt available, we expect we will have access to it. The truth is, I only started distilling last year, so we still have a while to go. It's unlikely that they're going to put out a very young 3-year-old general release. So we'll just have to wait and see. For those who don't know, Ardnahoe is a new island distillery. It's built by Douglas Lang. They're independent bottlers, and started operating last year. For a time, Jim McEwen, very well-known Jim McEwen from ex-Brooklady fame, was involved in the project. He's no longer working with them, but great team, great family, great history, great people. And I've tried some Ardnahoe samples, both cast samples and new make, and I've been very impressed. So we'd love to get Ardnahoe, but it is a new distillery, and we're going to have to wait a few years to see what their plans are and what whiskey they have available. This is a question. It's actually directed to Andy, so unfortunately, I'm not going to try and answer that now. Dean is asking a question about, and I saw another question here about Pappy Van Winkle, and do we get involved in these? So Pappy Van Winkle is probably the most sought after and recognized, collectible premium bourbon brand. It is owned. There's a whole long history there, and it's very interesting. The Van Winkle family, and now some of the Pappy Van Winkles are owned by Buffalo Trace, and it's part of them, part of their releases. And then on the other hand, you still have a member or two of the Van Winkle family who are responsible for other releases. The Pappy Van Winkles go for ridiculous prices. I mean, they generally, if you are one of the, one in a million that has access to buy them immediately when they become available for retail, you're looking at £100, anywhere from £70 to £100, anywhere from, let's just say, $80 to $120. So very well priced. The truth is, there is such limited quantity, and there are so many drinkers that want it that it just gets sold out immediately. And you're looking at ballots, so people have to enter to say, look, I want access to buy one. You get randomly drawn, and maybe you can have access to it. And so, although Buffalo Trace is available in South Africa and doing well, the Pappies are not available in South Africa, and they I want to say haven't been ever, even though we've had the Buffalo Teak and Trace collection, Buffalo Trace and Teak collection. The Pappy Van Winkles have not been available here. So, we would love to have access to Pappy Van Winkle as private individuals. Would I like to drink Pappy? Absolutely. I've been very fortunate to try several, but the truth is the prices are just astronomical. There are, I would say it's impossible to get it directly on retail. If you can, you should always try. The secondary market prices go up 10,000 Rand plus, depending on the Pappy Van Winkle. They'll go, they are eye-watering. And so, not something that's generally available to most consumers. Are there any bourbon distilleries outside of the United States? That's from Mitch. So Mitch, to answer your question, no, there are not. Technically, and by law, bourbon can only be produced in the US. So you cannot have a bourbon distillery outside of the United States. It's a protected region. So it's like Scotch whiskey. Scotch whiskey can be different styles or categories of whiskey, but it has to be made in Scotland. And the same for bourbon whiskey. One of the requirements to produce a whiskey that can be called bourbon is that it has to be produced in the United States. There are additional requirements. So there's actually a few steps. One of them is that the ingredients it uses, the mash bill, has to be at least 51% corn. It has to be matured in new oak barrels. If it is a straight bourbon, it has to be matured for at least 2 years. If it's matured for less than 4 years, it has to tell you how long it was matured for. There's certain requirements and regulations, as a distinct category of whiskey, but you do not find it is illegal. It cannot exist to have a bourbon distillery outside of the USA. And just finishing us off, I'm quite keen to just look at the comments, and I was really hoping this would be a shorter episode. My thinking was if we don't have a special guest on, we can get through a lot more and make it more interactive. I think we've accomplished that, but it still hasn't been a quick endeavor. And as long as guys are watching and people at home are finding it interesting, then it's absolutely our pleasure to be here. I see Peter saying, "Oof, Pappy Van Winkle, that would be a treat. It would be a treat. We'd all love more Pappy Van Winkle in our lives." you're talking about, there's a lot of hype when it comes to Pappy, but the truth is some of the Pappy releases are absolutely brilliant. Are they some of the best bourbons ever released? Yes. Are there other equally brilliant bourbons released? The answer is yes, there as well. But if you like bourbon, Pappy is on your list. You usually want to try and own it or buy it or at least taste it, depending on what you can afford. Sadly, it is out of reach of most of us, but we'd all like more Pappy in our lives. Just looking through, I see there's, so Hardy, I've seen you kind of interacting, so thank you very much, Hardy. You're one of our Cape Town fans and supporters, we hope one day we can have a little store there. At the very least, we were hoping in August we would have our show there and get to kind of see our Cape Town whiskey lovers, interact with them a little bit more. Plans are just on hold for now. I'm going to answer 2 more questions and I'm going to say goodbye. There's a question from Mitch again. You mentioned that we stand at number 9 in terms of world demand. Who's number 1 and 2 and 3? So just to I guess a little bit more meat to your question there. In terms of Scotch whiskey, South Africa is the 9th largest consumer of Scotch whiskey by volume. So in terms of volume consumed, and we used to be up at around 6. I think that's our best placing. We were up there as well for 6 and 7 in terms of value. So people, in terms of the value of Scotch whiskey sold to South Africa, it was quite high in terms of global markets. Sadly, we've dropped off, and it's very understandable. Economically, there's been quite tough times. Who's number 1, 2, and 3? If I recollect correctly, you're looking at America, you're looking at France, and you're looking at Italy, if I'm not mistaken. Definitely top 5 there. And I mean, just think of the American economy, the size of it, the number of people, massive consumer, and as much access to some degree to Scotch whiskey as they want. Mitch, I hope that answers your question. I would also just like, so this is I have this book with me. It's always on my table, on my desk, with the Malt Whiskey Yearbook. This is the 2020 edition by Ingvar Ronda. I absolutely love this book. And the reason I mention it with regards to your question is that the book always gives stats, and the top 10 volumes and value are in this book. Mitch, hope I answer your question. If not, just drop me an email and I'll give you the exact stats from the book. Last question, and I'm going to say goodbye. And that is, I'm just looking at the question quick. We've got Peter making a comment that Val, who I had up on screen a little while ago, Valentine, collects distillery pins. So if you tour distilleries, there's usually a visitor's center. You usually have some paraphernalia and branded glasses and notebooks, or whatever it may be, and the little kind of pins that you can, brooches for a better word. Distillery pins with a little logo on. Val collects distillery pins. So Peter is saying, if anyone is touring any distilleries, buy an extra pin and bring it back to Val. I know Val and I went to Japan. It's almost 2 years ago. It's hard to imagine it was that long ago, about 1.5 years. At some of the Tokyo whiskey bars, the bartender's wearing a waistcoat and full of pins. And I know Val was very impressed by that and was going to do it. And obviously it's a very unique look, and Val is quite a fashionable gentleman, and he never did it. So Val, this is just, where is your waistcoat? Where are all your pins? The fact you collect and like pins now is out in public. You should embrace it, and let's see you with your jacket on. Peter, thank you for reminding everyone. Last question, is Canadian whiskey worth the effort? And that's from Ryan. Ryan, very good question. I would say yes. The truth is there is no Canadian whiskey available in South Africa at this point in time. Historically, we had some Crown Royal. Maybe you could get some Canadian Club going back 10 years. These are high volume Canadian whiskies. They're generally considered rye whiskies, but the Canadian definitions are very different. But there are some wonderful new producers coming out of Canada. We would love to have access to them, to be honest, but at this point in time, we've been unable to. But if you are traveling, or when markets are open, if you're an individual that's kind of traveling for business, keep an eye open. 40 Creek comes to mind. JP Wise's comes to mind. The bar in Morningside has probably about 25 different Canadian whiskeys available. If you're able to visit it, it's a good place to also to try some Canadian whiskey. All right. I think so. In terms of questions, there's a few I'm not getting to, so I do apologize. Yeah, I think this has been great fun. Thank you for hanging around. Thank you for the interest. Thank you for the questions and the engagement, the interactivity. I hope it's been fun. Again, we'll get back to kind of a special guest. We are looking to line up a special guest next Friday. So just watch our newsletter. And we could have filled the slot, but to be honest, and it's been wonderful. Like I said, we're very fortunate that these individuals want to speak to us. It was also nice just to answer a little bit more questions, a little bit more about the South African community, make it more relative to what we have access to, what we're drinking, what we're tasting, and have the access to buy. We'd love to see more of your questions, so just keep them coming. Drop us an email or post them here. If I don't get to them now, I'll always just bank them for later. I want to thank everyone for watching. I'm going out on this, which is WhiskyBrother Highland Park. Well, I didn't really chat about it, but it was our first WhiskyBrother Highland Park release. We did 2 casks. Also fairly high alcohol, 60.4. It was a refill, but it is absolutely smashing. The second one was as good. Some preferred the first, some preferred the second. I just happen to have some of the first here on hand. So just to everyone watching, Slanjavar, cheers, be safe. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for your support. We love you all. Thanks for Peter for joining us up. Thanks to Neil and Gary and Val. I chat to them all the time. They're my team. They're my family. But I figured people watching were probably tired of me. So good to get a few of the other WhiskyBrother faces on. And shout out to the rest of the WhiskyBrother team sitting at home, eagerly waiting to get back to work. Eddie, Tracy, Fortune, Stu, and hopefully when we're up and running again, everyone can come visit us at the bar, at the shop, at the show, and we can all share a dram and laugh at the crazy times that are behind us. So cheers everyone, Slanjavar, keep safe, thank you for watching, and thanks for the support.